Let's start with your name. Where'd your name come from?
Well, Mott, my brother, he passed away. Rest in peace. He was murdered. He was shot 6 times in the head. And where I'm from, a guy, a friend of mine, he murdered him, and he passed away as well. And he was murdered too. You know what I'm saying? And he gave me the name Mine, and my brother gave me the name Mott. My name Lamont, but it's actually Mont, Lamunt. You know what I'm saying? But my mother changed it because she didn't like it. My grandmother gave it that name, so I don't know. My mother, she passed away as well while I was incarcerated. At the same time, it was like a year after my brother was murdered. I guess because of the stress and the trauma from that, she passed away. And my name came from that, L. Mott, so it's like a breakdown of my name, L. Mott.
Now, your brother was murdered. How old was he?
At the time, I believe my brother maybe was 25. He was 25.
And did you find out who did it? You said it was a friend of yours that actually killed him.
Yeah, it was a friend who actually killed him.
And how close were you to this friend?
It was close. It was real close, but it was real close.
That sounds like a very touchy subject.
Yeah, it was real close.
When you found out it was your friend that killed your brother, what was your reaction?
Man, it was horrifying. I mean, when I heard about it, but it was, I couldn't really, like, the way, it made me feel, I was angry, but I couldn't do nothing because I was incarcerated. I was locked up on a manslaughter charge. I was on a murder charge. They broke down to manslaughter. It was 9 years I did, what I'm saying, since I was 17. So, I was in there, as me being in there, I couldn't do nothing but just react. I feel angry, want to spaz out, but, I had to contain myself in order for me to get past this. It was hit like a rock. I was hit like a rock hard. It hit me hard.
So this all happened while you were incarcerated?
While I was incarcerated.
Now, how did you find out about the news initially that your brother was killed?
Well, I was sitting in the dormitory. And they called my name. And when they called my name, I was like, what they want? I mean, so. But I walked down, my brother, he wasn't no innocent, he wasn't an innocent bystander. He was, he was somebody who was actually into that lifestyle. So, they called me. I walked to the office, and they said, got a telephone call. But in prison, they call you outside to use the phone because they normally don't do that. It's not a normal thing. They call you outside to use the phone. It's like, so in my mind, I'm like, when I heard my mother's voice, I picked the phone up and I heard her voice, but she sounded normal. So I already knew he was dead. As soon as she got on the phone, I already knew, he was gone. I told her, they got him, huh? And she said, yeah, babe. And she started crying. And, what I'm saying? And, I started crying too, I started crying and I broke down, so,
I see. How soon after he was killed that your mom actually made the call to you? Was it right away?
No, it wasn't right away. I didn't understand that, but I kind of understand. But it was maybe a week or so, maybe a week.
When did you find out it was your friend that actually had killed him? Was that right away or after some time?
Well, it was kind of right away, but I can't divulge too deep off into that.
Okay.
Deep off into that, but it was kind of right away. It was right there.
I see. Okay. Now, can we talk about your prison stint?
Yeah, my prison stint. Well, I was allegedly, I murdered a guy. It was self-defense. Self-preservation is the first law of nature. So, I actually murdered a guy. He was trying to hurt me. It was a long story, but I actually killed him. And it was at a gas station. And he saw it on camera. But he saw me and him fussing on camera. But by the pump, when we went by the pump, it didn't have cameras there. It was one of those run-down gas stations. It was not like a Chevron or a BP or something like that, something of that nature. But it didn't have any cameras, so I ended up going to jail. I mean, I ended up the witness on the case. He ended up some kind of way. He was murdered, but. I could have beat the charge, but it was self-defense. I could have beat it, but when I took it, I felt like, you know, this is something I did, so I'm just pay my dues. It was something I did, so let me just go and pay my dues and get out the way. So when they offered me, they broke it down to 62 days. They broke it down and charged me with manslaughter because they said we had a fight. So when they charged me with manslaughter, you know, I went in the courtroom and me and the lawyer, she talked to me. She was like, "Well, you know, take the charge. You murdered a guy." And I was like, I didn't tell you I murdered a guy. You know, at the time, I was like, so she was like, well, you had to take something. And, so I asked her. I was like, ma'am, I mean, you want me to take 40 years? I was like, you know, do you have any children? Do you have children? She was like, yeah, I have a son and a daughter. I said, well, how old is your son? She said, her son was 17, the same age as me. So I was like, you know, would you allow your son to take the charge? She said, no. So I said, well, why the fuck you want me to take it? You see what I'm saying? So she was like, oh, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Well, I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, because, you know, being in the system and, you know, lawyers, when they work in the system, they become desensitized. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, in the routine and the monotony of being in that system, you know, it helps them to become desensitized and they're not worrying about a life. They're dealing with lives. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, so it's like she ran to the DA. She said, owes her a favor, and she come back with 20. She asked me to take 20, and I was like, you know, ma'am, I'm 17. That's like the rest of my life. I don't know what that looked like. So she looked at me again, and she went back. And, you know, my brother, he introduced me to a guy who understood law. He taught me law while I was in there. He taught me the law, a guy named Glenn, and as he taught me that law, I was actually, you know, I couldn't afford, you know, so I mean, being in poverty, and, you know, living in poverty, I couldn't afford a legal attorney. I had to go with the state appointed attorney, and we all know they're not in our favor. So it's like, you know, I had to use the literature and the knowledge that I gained from Glenn, you know, to help fight my case, and that's how I got it broke down to 9. You know, so using the literature, and as I got it broke down to 9 years, I cobbed out. I took a plea deal. As I took the plea deal, and, you know, I went upstate. They sent me to DCI. They sent me to youth offender program. And as I went in there, I began to evolve. You know, being isolated, that manifestation of isolation, and, you know, just, you know, being able to grow. You know, it's like the butterfly and the moth. You see what I'm saying? It's like the butterfly and the moth. You know, we in a cocoon, so the prison is sort of like a cocoon. So, you know, you either can come out with a negative mentality, and that'd be a symbol of the moth, or you could be a butterfly, and that'd be a symbol, you know, a beautiful mind. You see what I'm saying?
Now, what were you facing if you didn't take that plea deal?
Well, I was actually facing 40 years. I mean, 40 years. And they wanted to take it back, actually. You know, when I did take the plea, the DA, he was trying to take it back. Like, he was like, oh, he really wanted me. He wanted to get, you know.
Oh, he wanted to take the plea deal back.
Yeah, he wanted to take it all back. He wanted to charge me with second-degree murder. He didn't want, the DA, he refused to let me go, you know. That's crazy.
Now, okay, was that the best decision looking back? Was to take the plea deal, or do you wish you would have fought it in trial?
I wish I would have fought it in trial, because, you know, losing my mother and my brother, you know, that's 2 cornerstones of my life. I mean, you can't get that back. So, you know, I probably would have did anything to get them back. So, I mean, if I wasn't in prison, maybe I could have did something to prevent certain things from happening. You know what I'm saying? I believe in divine predestination, and God's done everything for a reason, but I still feel as though I could have had some stake in shifting, you know, the ideas that was going on around that situation.
Now, okay, when you were sentenced for that amount of time, what was your mother's reaction?
Oh, she cried. I mean, my mother, you know, she raised us, and she raised us right. You know, I give her that. She raised us right, but you know, we grew up in an environment. The environment, you know, children respond to imagery, so, you know, we grew up in an environment, and I grew up in a dope house. Like, New Orleans is full of dope. I know you see the epidemic that's going on around the world, but New Orleans been like that. Phenom, they've been using that in the dope. So, you know, New Orleans is like a cesspool for dope. So I grew up in a dope house, in the crack house. Around, you know, my mother, she didn't smoke. You know, she didn't smoke, because she didn't do any drugs, because my whole family, my uncles, my aunts, they all did that. You know. So, you know, it's like, it's like, you know, I forgot the question.
Oh, well, I asked you what your mother's reaction was to to taking the plea deal.
Yeah, I read my mother's reaction. Well, yeah, my mother, yeah, she took it hard. She took it real hard. I mean, I'm her baby, so you know the environment created similar, you know, a person that you know, so you know, created a person that you know, unlike my mother was used to seeing, and so you know, she didn't believe that I could kill a man, or she didn't believe, you know, like a normal mother. She didn't believe, like anybody mother, you know, you're always their baby. You're always a baby to them. So me leaving the nest like that, and not going off to college or, you know, doing something productive, I'm going to prison. She just thought it was the end all to be all. You feel what I'm saying?
Did she want you to fight it in trial, or?
No, she wanted me to take the plea.
Okay.
She wanted me to take, she actually told me, she was like, she told me this, I didn't understand it, but she said she actually felt better with me being in prison. She said because she feel like, you know, I'm kind of safe. I'm behind the walls, and, you know, so much killing going on in New Orleans at the time. So it was like, she said, you know, you're kind of safe. So she kind of felt better that I was in there.
Now, did you end up doing the whole 9 from start to finish, or were you able to get off a little earlier than that, or no?
Well, I lost good time. You know, you know, messing with the deputies, the female deputies. You know, I was messing with the female deputies. So, yeah, so I lost good time. They had this thing called 21. You know what I'm saying? You probably, you know, outside of, in society it might sound, you know, sort of perverted, but, you know, you got guys who mess with the game, what they do, you know, homosexuals, and they got other guys who mess with the females. You know, they, you know, pull their, you know, penis out, pull their dick out, jack off on them, shit like that. So, you know, I end up dealing with the females, you know what I'm saying?
I see.
And, you know, so I lost good time. So I ended up doing like 2 months and a couple of days.
Now, what type of prison were you sent to? And this was 17 years old, right?
Yeah, I was 17 years old.
And before you actually got sent to prison, how long were you in county jail while this was all going on with the plea negotiations and all that stuff?
I was in there for like maybe a year and a couple of months.
A year and a couple months. Couldn't bond out? Did they even give you a bond?
Nah, they didn't want to give me. They told me I was a minute. All right, when the witness was murdered, somebody knocked on the door and shot the witness. I don't know what happened. I don't know what that story was about, but somebody miraculously shot the witness, and the guy, I guess he felt like I had some kind of stake in it, and he used that plow. He used that to bind me in jail.
I see.
So the DA was like, no, he's a menace to society. You can't let him out because, you know, this case will never get him. You know, so.
I see. Okay, so a year and a half in jail, and then they send you to prison. And they send you to youth offender because of your age?
Yeah, because of my age. It was a program, they do LSU corresponding courses. You get trades, you get your GED. You know, a lot of different things. It was like a baby Angola. What I mean by that is you know, a lot of fighting going on in there. You know, it was like a war zone. But at the same time, if you were smart and you could take care of yourself, and you was a young man, you could hold your own ground. You were able to gain something and learn something from it, glean something from, you know, that part of the jail. That was the same prison that they actually locked Boots in, DCI. So,
okay.
You know, they took me to DCI, Dixon Correctional Institute. So, you know. Yeah, that's.
Did you eventually get transferred to a big boy jail after that? After the youth offender program's over?
Yeah, it was on the same compound.
Oh, okay.
The same compound, but it was sectioned off. So once you finish the youth offender program, I actually got kicked out. I didn't finish it. So I went to the blocks. So once you go to the blocks, I went to the block for the 21. So once aggravated disobedience. So once you go to the blocks, they send you to the big part. You know with a midnight.
Now, when you actually go to the big part, what was the first night like? Real prison, adult prison.
It was serious. I mean, you know, it was real serious. It was real serious. I mean, you had everything in there, all kind of different characters, all kind of different people. But if you know, like I said, I mean, you know, if you know, people know you. You know what I'm saying? You know, like when you're in the streets and people know who you are before you get there. So it's like, you know, I had so many people that I knew that was in there already. And it was you know, I hate to say it that way, but it was like a high school class reunion. It's like, you know, everybody, you know, I knew everybody in there who was in the dome. So.
Now, there's different types of prisons, different levels of prison. What level of prison was the adult prison for you considered to be?
It wasn't maximum security, but it was, how could I say, it was like a disciplinary camp. It was people from Angola opened it up. So if you know anything about Angola and Louisiana, Louisiana has the worst prison system in the world. So if you know anything about that, you know that it was a serious situation. Any place or any prison in Louisiana was kind of like Max, or it was the worst of the worst.
How did you pass the time?
I read books. I read every book that I could think about. I read every hip hop magazine. I read every, I listened to every music. The music was everything. I mean, I listened to every. I mean, I'm East Coast, West Coast, down south. Symphonies. Jazz. It don't matter. The music kept me alive.
You had a radio, or was it like the JP system?
No, we had the radios. This was way before JP. We had Sony radios and Sony CD players. We had to order from this thing called Music by Mail.
Did you rap inside?
Yes. That's why the birth of me. That's where I come from. The prison, the bars. Behind the bars. Like if you was doing the story behind the bars, like this, it's like a real ground. It was like an industry to me. Because you had different individuals from different parts of Louisiana, maybe even across the world. And, we would have these big ciphers. I mean, dropping knowledge. And you got guys who could tongue twist, sing, rap. All the talents is locked in prison. So, I learned from the ciphers. I learned from listening. I learned from reading, studying English. And, I was actually illiterate. So, I had to teach myself, kind of like, Malcolm X. Malcolm X taught himself in prison. And you can equate that to that situation. And I actually read that book, and it helped me to, see where to go at, what route to take. You know what I'm saying? When, bettering myself and trying to educate myself to get through the time. But reading was a form of escapism, and music was a form of escapism.
Did you battle other inmates?
Yes. Yeah, I battled quite a few inmates.
Did you win?
Yes, every time.
Did you use any of your lyrics that you wrote in prison in your music that you put out publicly after you left prison?
Yes, all of it.
Because I've done some interviews with people that have been to prison and they don't use any of it, or much of it.
Right. Well,
they kind of leave those jail raps, quote unquote, behind.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it jail raps because you got to think about it. Every stage of your life is like documentation, and if you document your life or document your thoughts, and as they grow. So if you sit in the cell, it's just like sitting in the studio in a booth by yourself. If you're living in a booth, I'm away from the world, so I'm able to think. I'm able to be more creative than the average artist. I can't live reality. I live that life, but the life that I lived before prison and the thoughts that I have now, it helps me become a better artist. That's why my skill is at an all-time high, because I was able to sit there and work on my craft. So I think the music is better. I heard some other Tupac say he didn't write at all in prison. But I'm a different story, and I wrote. That's all I did was write. I was actually sent to a cell for 365 days. 365 days, and it was an extended lockdown in a cell by myself for a whole year. And that's when I actually wrote I wrote books, poetry books, I wrote raps. I wrote everything I could write. Screenplays, whatever. I just wrote.
What led you into that situation?
Went into writing?
No, into being on lockdown for a whole year.
It was the 21s. The 21s was, messing with the free women.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
Yeah,
I got you. Now, somebody watching this, about to head to prison themselves, what are some do's and don'ts inside prison?
Some do's and don'ts inside prison?
What would you tell somebody headed to prison for the first time? What's some advice?
I would tell you, stay to yourself. Be yourself. Be a man. A lot of people, find yourself. Because, if you find yourself, your strengths and your limitations, you know how to move, and I wouldn't have to give this advice. A lot of people, suffer from, identity crisis. So if you can find yourself, you'll know how to, adapt to any situation. You have to be able to adapt to that environment, because it's a different environment. You're in a cell by yourself. Some people, I just saw people kill themselves. I just saw people go crazy and just jig everybody up just because they're bored. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a crazy situation, but I tell anyone who's gone into that prison system, stay to yourself, read, find yourself, do self-inventory, find who you are, transcend your mind. That's the best way to deal with this situation.
What about gangs? Can one survive prison without joining a gang? Or being a part of a gang?
It depends on where you go at. Like, it's different camps, people group up. They group up, and you know, you have to pick a side, you know, but the men normally stay neutral. A true man stays neutral. You know, but certain situations, like in the feds, you know, I have a few friends in the feds, you know, free them all. But when you think about that, it's different. You have the, you know, the Mexicans against the, you know, whites, and you have the blacks against the, you know, the whites, the Mexicans, and they all together. They band together. So that's a different situation. So, I mean, survival, I could pretty much feel the survival, you might need the, you know, the numbers. You know, because togetherness is power. When you have numbers more than one, you can actually overpower something. You know, so a man to himself, you know, 100 men on one man, I mean, that's kind of hard. It's a hard situation, you know what I'm saying? I hate for anybody to be in that situation, you know?
Did you have to fight in prison?
Well, the fights that I had was actually, you know, people that I already knew, you know, and a couple of more fights that, you know, I had, it was just misunderstanding. So I fought. I mean, they tried to bush me. You know what I'm saying? I fought him, you know what I'm saying? They grabbed knives, you know, I grabbed a lot, you know what I'm saying? You know, we fight, and it was a big old gang fight, big old G fight, you know. They call it a G fight.
In these fights, were you defending yourself, or were you the aggressor?
Well, a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Could they have been avoided?
It could have. Anything could be avoided. If you can see it before it comes, anything can be avoided. But you know, at the time of my youth, I mean, every man before they, you know, they grow, you know, it's a little ticked off by certain things. That environment, you got to understand, you're dealing with maybe on one single dome, like 100 personalities. So you're prone to get into some kind of war situation.
Now, you were on lockdown for 1 year?
365 days.
And that's, what, 23 hours confined and 1 hour where you can do what you want?
1 hour, you can do what you want.
Now, what was that like, that solitary confinement? Was that also considered the hole? Is that the same thing?
It's the hole. That's
okay,
the hole.
Yeah.
It's called the hole.
What was that like? How does one survive mentally and get through that? I've heard of, you know, people doing it for a little bit, maybe 15 days or a month or a couple. I've never heard somebody do a whole year, though.
Yeah, that was me personally. My stepfather, I had a stepfather. He was Muslim. He was a disciplinarian. So he used to, you know, when he like how he punish us, he would put rice on our knees and phone books and put us in the closet and make us face the wall. That's how he punished us. So I kind of think the closet helped me be prepared for the hole, because he knew life was going to be hard. You know what I'm saying? Harsh. He come from prison, so he was a disciplinarian. He knew, he understood something. But when I got to the hole, the little boy in the closet actually grew up, so he knew how to handle the closet. You see what I'm saying? So I'm actually inside the closet once again as I'm in the hole. So in the hole, I was able to look at my past, and you know, like kind of like a scholar, he had to take into account the present, the past, and the future. So I did, you know, I did some scholarly thinking, and I got in there, and I really evolved. I think that was the time for me to evolve. And like I said, that's when I did the most writing in my life. I wrote, I just wrote everything. I wrote, you know, I sung, I wrote, and I didn't, like, I could have talked to someone. They had, like, it was 2 bunks, and on the top bunk was empty. My bed was at the bottom, and they had a sink that you piss and you shit, you know, at the same time. And it's just me, and they got a little flap that they stick my food in. So, and at the top they had this vent, and in this vent, you have maybe, I think, 12 people in this whole thing, but each different cells. But I can get in the vent and talk to the people. They have a guy, you know, he's across from me, but I never talked to him. They had a fan, I'd tell them to turn the fan on. So people were like, man, who's in this cell? Because, you know, they want conversation. They got some dudes back there longer than me, you know, 7 years, 6 years. So they want conversation. They looking for, you know, to be updated. You know, it's like trapped in a hole. So, you know, me, but I wanted to, you know, be to myself. I wanted to know me. I wanted to get to know me better. So, as I was able to get to know me, I'd turn a fan on and I'd start writing. I wouldn't want nobody to know I was in there. I just get to know me and enjoy itself.
So people were trying to talk to you and you just wouldn't say nothing back?
I wouldn't say nothing back.
Now, how does one not go crazy?
It's interesting. I mean, I can't like, in my mind, I'm like, you know, I wrote the poetry, so I figure that's my way of coping with it. I mean, going crazy, I mean, probably drive the average person insane. But like I told you, like my history with, isolation is different. You see what I'm saying? So my history with isolation is different. Isolation drives some people insane. But if you look in history, everybody who's been isolated themselves. I mean, not to get religious, but Jesus, Muhammad, he went to the cave. Everybody who isolated themselves has sort of like an epiphany, and they grew. It's something, they grew from it. So, the isolation was good. I don't think isolation is all that bad. Sometimes the walls talk to you, the walls listen. But, isolation, it's nothing like it.
Does time go slower being in solitary confinement than in like a general population, or is it the same amount? Does it feel like the same amount?
Nah, it doesn't feel like the same amount. In general population, you're able to move around and talk to different people. But being in that hole, it's like it's every day. It's like day for day for real. It's day for day. Like every time that that food, that the garbage they send through the hatch, you're gonna feel it's day for day.
Was the what you got in trouble for dealing with the females and stuff like that, was that worth that confinement that you had to endure for a year, or no?
I mean, actually, it was. It was. I mean, I wouldn't change it for the world. I wouldn't change it because, I wouldn't be able to think outside the box. I had to be put inside the box to think outside the box. So, I wouldn't change it for the world. I'm happy being out the box.
What was that first day like when you got back in the general population?
It was awkward. It was like kind of like a culture shock. You're not really actually, you ain't feeling the vibe. It's like right now, me being here. It's like, I'm like, man, yeah, I just did, 10 months just now. So it's like me being here right now, it's awkward, but it's not so awkward because now I'm in my element. I'm dealing with hip hop, I'm in my element. So, but it was awkward. It was an awkward feeling.
Craziest thing you've seen while you were locked up? 9 years, that's quite a long time.
Yeah, I mean, guys getting raped. I mean, on top of a bunk in the middle of a dorm with a knife to their neck.
That stuff does happen.
Yes.
When I talk to people and I do interviews about prison and we talk about rape, most people will tell me, some people have told me that it does happen, but more often than not, people will say, those were the old days. It's not like how it was before. People don't need to get raped anymore because there are gay guys in prison that are ready to give it up. So if somebody's looking for that type of action, it's already there.
Right. It's already there, right, okay. But I feel like, in certain circumstances, it depends on where you go at. It's like I say, like each dormitory has a different mindset, a different mentality. It's like traveling to Africa, to Europe, from the United States. It's different mentality. So each dome has different mentalities. So, a person can say that, and I agree with what they're saying, because I do agree, but I agree to disagree, because you never know what happened in this dorm. You see what I'm saying? In this dormitory, it might be going down, or over here, it might not be going down. So, at the time when I was in there, it was going down.
So somebody's getting raped at knife point. Does the whole thing go through, or does somebody put a stop to it, or?
Yeah, eventually the hotel ran them off because it's disrespect if you're doing this in the open like this. So they actually ran the guy off, You know what I'm saying? So it's a respect level. Like prison is actually based upon respect. So, you have to respect. If you don't respect, you're gonna get disrespected, or somebody they're gonna bring an answer.
Have you ever seen that show on MSNBC called Lock Up before?
Lock Up.
It's kind of like a documentary style about prison. It's not, I don't want to say reality TV, but it's like a documentary type of style about prison. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't.
I haven't seen it.
Okay. All right, I'm going to move forward with another question then. What kept you motivated inside?
Well,
because your brother was killed, you found out, and then your mother, she passed away while you were in prison also, right?
Right. All that happened. It's, uncles. You got a few uncles who, cousin got killed. A lot of people got killed, but that was the cornerstones of my life. A lot of friends, when I left, when I came back, all my friends went to the feds. The feds had grabbed a group of my friends. And, I lost everything, but, motivation, I had to keep myself. You know what I'm saying? The fight to get back. You know, and my mother, she made me promise her that I'd take care of her kids. So I had a sister. She was left just me and her. And she had a baby, and my brother had a baby, and it's, so those are my children right now. So it's like, I had to take care of them. So that was one of the motivations. But, me personally, it was me. It was me, growing and changing, becoming a man.
Now, when you found out your brother was killed in prison, what year of prison was that for you?
What year?
Yeah, was that like towards the middle of your sentence?
That was towards the end.
Oh, towards the end.
Yeah, it was towards the end. It was me coming home. I came home in 2012. Well, that was in 10. My mother passed in 11, and 12, then I came home. So I basically came home to nothing, because when I left, that's all I knew.
And you think your mom died because of the stress from the death of your brother?
Yeah, it was different elements to it, but that was most definitely a different, element.
Was it of natural causes?
No, but in her abdomen, they broke a tube off in her. The hospital actually played a part inside of it. They somebody broke a tube off in her. That's what I was told. And I'm researching it, because she had slipped into a coma after he died. She slipped into a coma. She was like a skeleton, and she came back. When she came back, she was healthy. She had to undergo these surgeries, and that's what happened.
A surgical procedure?
A surgical procedure.
Led to her death.
Yeah, led to her death.
But initially, maybe going into that coma and stuff.
The comas. She was in and out comas.
That started the need for the surgery.
Yeah, she had the surgery. She had a trach in her throat. They had to take one of her lungs. It was all kind of, man. It was just all kind of too much at one time. I would talk to her like we would have cell phones in prison, and we get them in. I can't explain how we get them in, but we have cell phones in prison, and I talk to her. She better could talk to me.
How did you find about the news of her death?
They didn't even want to tell me that. They didn't even want to tell me that at all. But my auntie called. My auntie called up there to prison. It was the same way as like one year I got the call for my brother, and they called me out there again, and it's like, who they talking about? Who was murdered? You feel what I'm saying? And then I get to the phone with somebody else on the phone. My auntie Rooney, she on the phone, and all my aunties, and I'm like, man, you serious? I couldn't. You feel what I'm saying? I couldn't. That right there, that was tragic. That was tragic. And I told the people to put me in a hole. I told them, I said, man, just put me in a hole, because I can't be in the population like this, because I'm a flash. I felt it. I'm like, I'm gonna crash out. I got the knife under my bunk. I'm about to go crash out. I ain't telling them I was gonna crash out like that. I just asked them, could they put me in a, you know what I'm saying? So I went to the hole, and as I went to the hole, I cried about it, but I wrote about it. I wrote a song for her. It's called Mama. I wrote a song for her. It's on my SoundCloud, and it was really heavy. It was really heavy. It's like I wrote this song. The hook, she actually heard it, so I was telling her I was gonna write a song for her before. That's why I chose that hook. But at the same time, I wrote the song and I was crying, and I realized I wrote a song, so I went to crying harder, because I didn't realize I was writing when I was crying.
I see. Now, you spoke to your mom on cell phone. Did she get a chance to visit you?
Yes, that's all she did. She never wanted to talk on the phone. Like my mother, she never put money on the phone at all. All she did was wanted to see me, send money, and just send pictures and send letters and cards.
How often did you get visits from her?
Every time. Every time the shade was open, my mother was in there. I don't care where it was at. She'd jump in the car by herself, and she gonna come see me. You know what I'm saying? I was her baby. She went all out her way for me.
Was she far from where you were locked up at?
Yes, she was very far from where I was at. I was in New Orleans, actually on the west side, the West Bank. That's Harvey, Louisiana. So I was in Harvey, and that's where she was living at. So she had to drive way up north Louisiana. Maybe I could say that was about 6 hours ride. So a 6 hours drive there and back. And they shipped me to a place called Franklin Parish, and she only could see me for 1 hour. At DCI, she could see me for 3 hours. But when they sent me to Franklin Parish, she had to drive a little bit further than them 6 hours. And she had to live there. She had to see me for just an hour. And I told her, I don't want you in a role like that. But she was like, she said, man, you know, if anybody come up here, you know, for just to see you for an hour, they love you. That's what she told me. She said, you know, you don't have a choice. I'm gonna come anyway.
Who else visited you?
All my friends. I had a neighborhood for the friends. They all visited me. Everybody, like that first one right there, like everybody came through with money. Everybody, like the whole hood, the whole block, like everybody. You know, I was one of the babies of the block, but they loved me. They loved me. So my whole hood, they came out.
Now, El Chapo escaped prison twice. Did you have any thoughts on breaking out?
Yes. I actually had a thought when I was in the 365 days I did. They had this dumpster. They had this dumpster outside, and they had this trucker come in there, and it'd pick the dumpster up and drop it in there and just smash the trash. So I actually had this thought. You know, I believe in manifestation. I had the thought, and I thought about it. I wanted to do it so bad. I was like, but they had these, you know, two white guys. They actually did it. The same thought. While I was thinking it, they was doing it.
Wow.
And they almost killed themselves because if the guy didn't make a stop and get the trash for the first run before he came to get the trash from over here, they would smash. The machine smashes like this.
Right.
The trash saved their life. But they actually caught him and brought him back, and they came back there with me. So that's how I got the story.